And ambulances don't really have like red and blue lights, you know.
Oh, so you thought it was
I don't, yeah, you don't know, you just looking at his lights. That's why I asked.
This is literally the first time that Travis Scott has actually spoken on the Astroworld tragedy since it happened. And honestly, it was a real emotional conversation. Overall, 10 people's lives were lost as a result of the tragedy, and tons were injured. The whole thing is just a mess, but it's also huge that we finally get to hear what Travis had to say. There have been a ton of theories on why things went down how they did, from the grounded to the absolutely insane. Now, Travis is trying to clear the air about everything, so let's go ahead and break it down. It's not like these things haven't happened at concerts before, and if we're being honest about it, it isn't even the first time that Travis himself has been involved in a rowdy crowd that injured people. In fact, there are a couple of different times. There was an interview in Complex back in 2015 titled, "I Tried Not to Die" at Travis Scott and Young Thug's show last night. And even back then, it's clear that Travis's concerts got a little crazy. That same year at Lollapalooza, Travis literally got hit with a disorderly conduct charge for inciting his crowd to mosh like it was a metal show.
I want chaos! Don't you kick them off! Don't you kick them off! Let's go! They're not gonna stop you, Mike. Get down there.
He straight up told everyone at the concert to ignore security and rush the stage, which was basically what would happen later on at the Astroworld festival. This charge was only a taste of the carnage that would happen at the other shows, though. Travis's encouragement of rowdy behavior at his shows would only get worse going forward. In 2017, things got even worse when it comes to safety at Travis's shows. To kick things off, there was a concert where he again caught a disorderly conduct charge, in addition to inciting a riot and endangering the welfare of a minor. Then, shortly after that, he got sued along with the organizers of a show he put on. One of the audience members at the show fell off a balcony and landed a few stories below, ending up with paralysis. At that same show, Travis was legit encouraging people at the show to jump off the balconies at the venue. In 2019's version of Astroworld, 3 people were injured as the crowd rushed the gates at the beginning of the show. This brings us to the Astroworld Festival crowd crush tragedy itself. It happened on November 5th of 2021. The whole situation was pretty much doomed from the start because the medical tents were entirely full before the music started. Aside from that, Live Nation and Paradox were the companies hired to handle the hosting of the event and the medical response. For those of you who don't know, Live Nation is just what Ticketmaster started calling itself after people started calling Ticketmaster out for being awful publicly. Paradox, on the other hand, is a company that provides medics and first aid for big events like this. The issue is that Paradox was in the middle of 2 different lawsuits when they were booked for Astroworld, and both of them were for the responses to big injuries like this. The whole thing was just a mess from the beginning. When stuff really started going down, no one was prepared. At the beginning of the show, the medical tents were already completely filled, dealing with overdoses. When the show finally started, everybody rushed the stage. One fan recounted trying to tell security that he was being crushed and that he needed to get out of the crowd. And the security guard basically just looked at him and said, "It's a mosh pit. What do you expect?" It got to the point where the crowd had to start crowd surfing unconscious people out, and people were even climbing on top of speakers and sound equipment to get out of the crush. Ambulances started making their way into the crowd to rescue people, and it seems like the crowd had no clue how serious the situation was. People were climbing and dancing on top of ambulances while fans were being trampled. Meanwhile, Travis Scott was just up on the stage performing like nothing was wrong. Travis claims he didn't know what was up. He says that he couldn't see anything because of the lights beaming up at the stage. To make matters worse, Live Nation made it so that even Travis didn't know what was up. He wasn't allowed to call out the concert. The only people who were allowed to call the show off were the owner of the venue and the guy from Live Nation who was organizing the whole thing. Travis left the show, and after everything was said and done, apparently no one had told him what was up. He spent a lot of the rest of the night at an after party hosted by Drake. That looked really bad for a minute, and people assumed that the whole thing didn't affect him. That was later kind of disproven, because according to people at the party, as soon as Travis found out what had happened that night, he left the party. After all the public backlash, Travis announced that he was going to cover all the funeral costs for everyone that had passed away at the concert. He also offered to give the family settlements to try and make up for what had gone wrong. A lot of the families refused the offer. Now, this is where it gets difficult, because it's not like Travis is completely innocent here. He has a history of encouraging people to tear the venue apart and rush the stage during his concerts. But at the same time, it's not like a lot of modern-day rappers aren't pulling the same stuff. To be real, it's like maybe we should be looking more at the way that Live Nation and the venue handled the whole thing instead of just pinning it all on Travis. So now that we got a basic rundown of how the whole situation popped off according to all of the news media and all that type of thing, let's go ahead and talk a little about what Travis had to say about the whole thing. Before the interview even dropped, it was clear that Travis felt like he had to let the world know how he was feeling about everything.
I just want to send out prayers to the ones that was lost last night. We're actually working right now to identify the families.
Of course, he knows that he messed up, but at the same time, he's not the only one to blame here. Travis and Charlemagne the God got into it on an episode of Charlemagne's YouTube talk show. Of course, even though Charlemagne has been defending Travis through a lot of this, he had to ask the hard questions we all want to know the answers to. He asked, in the past, you've encouraged, I guess, the kind of energy that could have led to something like this happening. Do you think that contributed to the energy of this? Travis responded by saying that the rage at his shows wasn't about any kind of negative energy or anything like that. It was all about having fun. He also mentions that it wasn't even until he had a press conference that he for real knew just how bad everything had gotten.
And this night was just like a regular show. You know, it felt like to me. As far as like, you know, the energy, people, it didn't feel like it was like, you know, people didn't show up there to just be harmful. People just, I think, showed up to have a good time, and then, you know, something unfortunate happened. And I think we really just got to figure out, you know, what that was, you know?
He explains that he'd been on an emotional roller coaster for the past month. And of course he has been. Because for real, it's been a lot. I mean, some of the people who ended up passing away were still in the hospital trying to make a recovery until just a couple of weeks ago. When asked about the deaths that happened as a result of the Astroworld tragedy, he said,
at the end of the day, like, these fans are your family, so you just feel like you lost something.
He also added,
trying to just really figure things out, you know? Figure out the bottom solution of what's going on and just try to ensures people, you know, safety.
The fans, on the other hand, have a mixed reaction regarding all of this. Some say Travis is to blame, and some believe Travis wasn't at fault. One fan tweeted, Charlemagne, Live Nation reportedly agreed to end the concert early after authorities declared it a mass casualty event, but the concert continued for another 40 minutes. Was there ever any indication to you on stage that you should end this? Here's Travis Scott's answer. Travis explains that he was told through an earpiece, which was also the reason he couldn't hear what was going on for most of the show, that he wasn't supposed to end the show until the guest came out, so he didn't. There was no, oh yo Travis, we gotta go ahead and end the show now. Another fan said, Travis Scott should have just laid pretty low till the case comes to rest, cause this interview with Charlemagne on Breakfast Club ain't it. Another fan also thought they were about to call Travis out, saying, it's called accountability. Travis is a grown man, and he needs to take some responsibility. As we speak, he is removing social media posts glorifying injuries, including pictures of kids passed out at previous shows. This fan said, you hip-hop magazine, why would you even add the word claim? Like you really think he would continue performing knowing people were dying? Please, magazine, don't turn into a world star. Now, of course, there are all the crazy Illuminati conspiracy theories going around about how this whole thing was some crazy satanic ritual to sacrifice a bunch of people for the elite and all that kind of thing. But I'm sure you've seen all that. But for real, none of that even makes sense. There are all these rumors about like, oh, that's not Travis, that's reptilian clone. Like, what are y'all even on here? The truth is scarier. This was an accident. At the end of the day, everyone involved in the whole thing is just a normal person. That goes for Travis, and that goes for everyone else involved in the whole thing. Now, what do you think? Is Travis really to blame? Let us know in the comments below. And if you think this situation is messy, wait until you check out this video.